What's up once again, everyone? New videos, new backtrack, and looking nice. I want to make one more video on the topic of the juice before I move back into just managing diabetes. Because I do think it's important, especially for us diabetics who deal with medical issues all day, every day. Let's talk about the mandates for a little bit. Let's talk about the fact that the juice is being forced on people, and not just anyone, but on people who have to go to hospitals, who have to deal with doctors. We have the example in Colorado right now where someone literally was taken off the organ donor list because they were unjuiced. That's pretty extreme, right? I don't think it's going to get any better. I think it might get a lot worse. There might come a point where it's not just workers, it's not just people going to concerts, but it's also people who just want to go to the doctor to get their insulin, for example, who are going to be forced to get the juice, or who are going to be asked to get the juice, or they're not going to be able to go to get their insulin. I hope it doesn't come to that, but if it does, I really hope we stand together and stand up and don't comply. Because I do believe that complying with this is only going to help set the next path, the next step towards total tyrannical control over our bodies, over our lives. The way I see it, we're not sheep, we're not cattle, we're not lab rats who are liable to be prodded by whatever science juice people want to put in us whenever we want. We're human beings with free will, with responsibility over our own bodies, with control over what goes in and what goes out, right? That goes away if we allow this. That goes away if we comply. And it's not going to get any better as long as we comply. We have to say no. And if that means people getting fired, if that means bad things happening, then that's what it means. Now, good news is if we do stand up to it and if we say no to the juice, we might be safe. If not, people say no, then they can't shut everything down, then they can't fire you, then they can't say you can't get your insulin because too many diabetics will say no. And they can't have that kind of liability on their hands. They can only do it if 95% of people say yes, and the other 5% are able to be marginalized. But if it's 50-50, for example, 60-40 even, 30-70, if enough people say no, then they cannot do it. They cannot make you comply if enough of us stand up together. So I encourage you to do that. Honestly, another spicy take when it comes to these mandates is I'm kind of glad they're happening. I'm not glad that people are losing their livelihoods. I'm not glad that people are losing their donors for the organs they need. I'm not happy that so many bad things are happening to people who just don't want to be lab rats. At the same time, though, there's some good to be seen here in that people are seeing it. People are seeing for the first time that the medical industry is corrupt, that the institutions that they're told to trust, the people in lab coats who say, do what we say, trust the science. People are finally seeing it the same way we've seen it for so long. It's easy for people like us, diabetics who are knee-deep in this system, to see how erroneous and faulty doctors are. But most people haven't had that kind of exposure until now. And so now you finally see a lot of people understanding that science truly isn't this gold standard fountain of knowledge that is impeccable, impenetrable, impossible to get wrong. Science is very faulty. It's very biased. It's very politicized in many different fields. And we've known that for a long time. We've experienced that for a long time. That's why you watch my channel. That's why you watch Dissident Views on managing diabetes. But the general public has not been exposed to that. They've never needed that. We're talking about people who haven't had to step foot in a doctor's office for years. And if they do, it's because they get in an accident or something like that. Now, all these people who have never been exposed to that before finally see it the same way we do. Finally, don't trust the doctors, maybe for different reasons, but don't trust them nonetheless. And honestly, they shouldn't. There's plenty of instances where you should trust a doctor. They are pretty smart. But unfortunately, they are still fallible. And since they are fallible, you should always take everything people say, whether they're in a lab coat or not, with a grain of salt. And finally, people are really getting that on a massive scale. I think they can make great changes. I hope so. It's going to take time. We have to get out of this current predicament first, right? Make sure that we don't lose everything, right? But hopefully we can come out of it on top. And we can come out on top with a massive, open, woke, awake conscious when it comes to the medical industry being as corrupt as it is. People have been able to call the medical institutions greedy, but how many have been confident in saying they're liars? How many have been confident in saying that they should not be trusted, that their medicine's faulty, that they withhold the right information from us? I don't think a lot of people have believed that till now. And now we're getting to a point where many people are believing that more and more every day because they're being pushed so hard to trust something that in their gut they know they shouldn't trust. So, in that sense, maybe it's a good thing this is happening. Maybe it's a good thing they're finally throwing open the whole deck. They're finally showing us the entire hand and giving it all they got. Because maybe it takes something hard like this to wake people up to what's really going on in the world and to who we really should be trusting. And I'll tell you what, if it's any solace, keep in mind that honestly, when there's a will, there's always a way. There's always going to be ways to get insulin, even if your doctor tries to bar you from there for being unjuiced. For example, I've made series about getting insulin from Walmart before. Now, it's not ideal, using R and NPH, for example, but it'll do the job. Honestly, you can also go back to the video I made about what to do in a diabetic apocalypse, where the food runs out, the insulin runs out, and one of the big main takeaways from that was stocking up. So I would encourage you to do that as well. If that means you have to, let's say, stretch your tooth a little bit for your doctor, say you lose a little bit more insulin than you actually do, so be it. If that means going to Walmart and buying up a bunch of R insulin and NPH, which by the way is pretty cheap anyway and will last a while in the fridge unopened, so be it. Do the things you can to make sure that if there's ever a time of crisis where you're unable to get your insulin for whatever the reason is, you don't have to sacrifice your principles. You don't have to sacrifice your human dignity. Your right to put whatever you want in your body and not to put something you don't want in your body. You won't have to sacrifice that in order to get the medicine you need. I think one more lesson people need to take away from this whole situation is take care of yourself. You don't want to end up dependent on an evil system ran by evil people who are corrupt, who just want your money, who aren't really in it for your health, but are in it for a paycheck or for their agenda or whatever it is. You do not want to rely on people like that, and that means being healthy. Because if you're unhealthy, like this person was, who ended up on stage 5 of kidney damage, you're going to end up in a very bad situation. I feel for everyone right now who is in such a situation. But for those of us who aren't yet, let's do our best to stay out of it. Let's stay healthy. As diabetics, let's keep our blood sugar at normal levels, good A1C, and hopefully we'll never end up in such a dire situation. We'll always be able to make the choice for ourselves, and we'll never be coerced by evil doctors into doing something we don't want to do because they're artificially putting our life at stake over it. It's insane. But it's unfortunately happening, so we gotta make sure that we're not relying on that anymore. We gotta make sure that we have control of our diabetes, of our bodies, and by extension, our lives. That's all I have to say about that. Once again, don't comply. Don't do it. You have a life to live. You have a healthy body that you need to maintain. And, if you want to get it, fine. I'm not going to stop you, but I don't think you should. I don't trust it. And honestly, I don't think you should either, given what I've been seeing at the very least. That's all I have for today, everyone. Keep taking that type 1. I promise, after this long hiatus, we'll finally get back to some real content. Be sure to follow me, by the way, to get that content. Be sure to follow me on Telegram, on Facebook. Yes, I'm still on there somehow. On YouTube. I'm also on BitChute, Rumble. I'm trying to be on all these different platforms. Odyssey. And follow me on all those different platforms. That way you can keep up. Telegram, I'm trying to be more active in, especially. And Gab, too. I'm also on Gab. Keep up with me there. And I'll see you next time. Until then, keep taming that type 1.